Hi guys, it's Athena. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a video and talk to you guys a little bit about the two new classes that I'm in and just sort of like what I'm noticing and experiencing and stuff. Sorry, my Diet Coke is like overflowing. It's just super bubbly. Ooh. It's in the flavor of feisty cherry. It has like a little kick to it. So you guys know for my summer semester, or if you don't, that I am taking two classes. I am taking, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. The Diet Coke keeps like bubbling and bubbling, and it must have a lot of carbonation. Ooh, man, that's like a wasabi kind of kick. Like it goes from the back of your mouth to your nose and your throat. You really feel it. So I am taking Intro to Sociology, and I made a really dumb comment to one of my academic advisors. I was like, I shouldn't take Introduction to Sociology. I know a lot about sociology, and of course, when you think you know something, you realize that you don't know anything at all about what you're talking about. And I'm also taking a film analysis class. And I just wanted to share with you, for some reason, education is like really, really impactful to me. And whenever I learn new information, it really is like it makes my brain grow bigger and bigger. And it's like a really intricate, detailed process. And it almost feels like, especially as an empath, of course, these two classes deal with really heavy subject matter. That is really intense and dimensional, and things that you would have never, thought you would talk about publicly or that you would analyze, regarding ethnicity, gender, religion, sexuality, self-identity, expression, environment, all these types of things. And in my film class, my film teacher, he didn't even tell us, but I guess in the syllabus there's like a little waiver thing that says that all the films that we're going to be watching in this class have a trigger warning to them. So the films, which I didn't know when I took the class, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that the subject matter is really controversial and is going to make you feel a lot of different feelings, and that has definitely happened. The first movie we watched was called Citizen Ruth, and it stars the beautiful and amazing Laura Dern. And Laura Dern is just such an amazing actress. She plays the mother in the Reese Witherspoon's movie Wild. And then Laura Dern also is in this movie there's a play, it's called Where Have You Been and Where Are You Going? And then I forget what the movie is called. I'll have to think of what the movie's called, but it's one of my favorite movies, and she's a young girl. This movie, Where Have You Been and Where Are You Going? That's just the play name. I can't think of the movie, but the movie came out in the 80s, and it's basically about this young girl who's just like kind of lost, and she's in that, experimental phase, and she's tired of listening to her mother. She's not really getting along with her. She feels really misunderstood compared to her sister, and anyways, there's this guy, and she's really like, the world of boys is like, I think she's like 15, but she looks like she's like 17, 18, but she's 15. She's really tall, blonde, and so it's Laura Dern. And anyways, there's this guy that is pretty much like a predator and a really unsafe kind of guy, and she knows that he's not that good of a person kind of off the bat. And sorry if you hear a cat. That's Juicy. That's the stray cat that I really like. She has been staying like outside of our house in this little house, and we like feed her and stuff. But anyway, so she can tell that this guy isn't good. And anyways, the movie just documents how he can manipulate her to be with him and like go out with him and do things with him, and how she feels in herself that she's so like mortified of like his intentions, and she knows that he's not good, but he's able to manipulate her. And I think that as a young woman, and as a woman or as a girl, I still feel very much that I'm in that stage of transitioning from a young girl to a young woman, and I really identified with that movie. And so I just feel like Laura Dern makes really great, very interesting movie choices. And so, anyways, the Citizen Ruth movie that she's in, it made me cry within the first minute of the film. Let me go get Juicy really quick. I'm gonna go give her like a treat or like, and then close the door and stuff. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Um, and so, yeah, anyways, Citizen Ruth made me cry within the first minute of the movie. You know, not to trigger warning, but it had to do with like, she was having sex with this guy, and it was like, really terrible heterosexual missionary style sex where the guy's just like going in and out, and she's like, this hurts, and she looks really uncomfortable, and she's like, not having a good experience, and he just keeps like, thrusting into her, and then he climaxes, and then he kicks her out of the apartment, and he's like, dumb bitch, and like closes the door, and and then she ends up like smashing all his windows with a baseball bat, which is like, yes. But it made me cry because I just started crying, and it's cool because the classroom is set up like a movie theater kind of, and so it's really dark, and the screen's in the front, and the seats are kind of like how it is in a movie theater, and I've had that same experience as a girl, and like I've just found heterosexual sex to be very painful and disappointing and very one-sided, and it's very I just feel like men have it a lot easier, and they just don't know what it's like as a girl to experience sex and what it's like as a woman, and to take into consideration how the woman's mind, body, and everything is connecting, and I think it's a little traumatizing to go through negative experiences like that, because I've allowed that to happen to myself, and I think that it really it just really, like, when I saw that, and when she said, like, just the look on her face and like how one-sided it was, I was like, this is definitely really impactful. So anyways, the movie has so much more meaning to it, and it talks about like pro-life and pro-choice and like all this stuff, and it's amazing, and I highly recommend it. And yeah, it just left this really big impact on me. And then the second day, I've only gone to the class twice, because that was we've only had class twice, rather, I should say. And then the second film we watched is called The Devils, and this movie was from like 1971. I forget like the people in it, but basically Warner Brothers has it like, you can Google it, but it's really hard to find it, to like get it and stream it and stuff. They basically are trying to bury the film and like have it not exist, because it goes against like the Catholic Church, and it's very controversial, and like nuns are like performing sexual acts on a Jesus statue, and then there's just there's all different types of really very fascinating psychological, religious, romantic, sexual like things going on, and it's a really, really incredible movie. It is definitely not for the faint of heart, but it's a movie with really amazing acting, in my opinion, like some of the best acting I've ever seen. The characters are just so devoted to their character, and it feels very real, even though it is just a movie. And there was this really powerful scene where there's this nun. Her name is like Mother Joan or something like that, and she has like a hunchback, and she's born, and so her head's like this, and she's like this very devout nun, but she has this like really passionate, intense, loving like connection to this guy who is like a priest or like high within the church, and she like shames the other girls for like finding him attractive, but then secretly she's like so like devotedly in love with him, and he's never even like met her before. And she has this dream, and there's a dream sequence where she's like naked, and she has this beautiful like auburn hair, and it's flowing, and it's really long, and you never get to see it in the movie because it's always covered by her outfit as a nun. And anyways, you can see her, and she's naked, and then she sees the guy that she likes, and he's like as a statue of Jesus, and he's like walking towards her, and like they like kiss, and then he like walks across the water, and like there's all this stuff, and then there's a scene where she's naked and she's like screaming like I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, and there's like all these nuns and people and like village people like laughing at her, and she just keeps screaming like I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, and she keeps like hiding herself, and she's like really ashamed of her having like the hunchback thing, but she is a very beautiful woman, and it just like that, like I was like, oh my god, that really like it hit me really hard. I thought that was just so powerful, and you know, it just a lot of things, and I mean it's just such a deep analytical class, and like I'm crying. I came home and I cried, and I was like, I'm so overwhelmed. And then for my sociology class, we're talking about like how certain ethnicity statistics of like you know, the statistical percentage of them going to prison and then for-profit prison, and we're talking about, you know, like just all this really deep stuff, and like these classes are just so deep, and there's so many things that I've never even heard of or knew existed, like terms like micro trauma, secondary trauma. I've never heard of that. I had no idea what secondary or micro trauma was, nor that it existed. But I wanted to share with you guys my book bag and sort of all my little charms on it. I have a few different charms. And there's this movie called The Hot Chick, and Anna Faris has this huge keychain where she has like this times like 1,000, and it's really long, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do my book bag as. But anyways, my grandfather got me this book bag. And sorry, I know that seems like really abrupt, but I wrote down in my notebook a couple things that I wanted to share with you guys that I have learned or that I found really interesting. Okay. So the first thing I just kind of wanted to show, this was from a lecture we had. And we have this sort of diagram, and it says society, structure, institution, and macro. And macro, like, I forget what the terminology is. And then we have sociology is the exchange between experience, identity, face-to-face, and micro. And then there's this thing called the school to prison pipeline. I've never heard of that before. There's just all these different things, and like then there's like the natural environment, the world around us, and like just all this stuff. It's really heavy stuff. It's very fascinating, and I'd never heard of it before. Or there will be things like there's this idea of a what is it called? Sociological imagination, and I'd never heard of that word before, but it was something that I had thought of in my own mind, and I had such a hard time articulating it, and I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to articulate it. And I thought it was something that I just thought of, but it actually exists in sociology. Again, it's called the sociological imagination. So, there's something that was interesting is that in my movie class, we were asked to analyze a movie scene, and sorry, I apologize for her meowing. She's just like really, really persistent. And we were asked to analyze this movie scene, and the class, most of them said like very literal things. Like they were like, we watched a scene from the movie Heat with like a bank robbery, and people were saying like there's this many people and the guns, but then when I answered, I said things like I commented on that there was a poster for Calvin Klein of 90s, you know, icon Kate Moss, and fashion icon and modeling icon, and then there was like a little kid, and that he identified like innocence, and that was a symbolism, and like I was just in such a philosophical mindset compared to everybody else, and like it just is so juxtaposed, and I realized that like, you know, there are people that think how they do, and then there are people that think how I do, and there's in between, and I thought of literal things too, and it doesn't mean that the way that I think is like special or something. It's just that I always feel like I'm so different, and like the way that my brain works and how I am thinking just is so different. Most people aren't thinking so philosophically, they're thinking so literally, and it just feels kind of scary that like I go through life that way, because I do feel really misunderstood, and I feel like I have such a unique narrative to life, and that just really opened my eyes to that. Let's see. A quote, a crime of survival. Never heard of that. Totally knew what it was, made sense to me, like doing something out of survival, even though it's against the law. And let's see, there's a couple other things I wrote down. I'm trying to think. I thought there might be another page or something. I guess not. What is this? Okay, those are just the note cards. But yeah, like a symbolic mind versus an analytical mind. Let's see. Okay, so my teacher said something. She said, "Why would I want to play a game? I'm always losing." And that really struck me because I feel like as a minority, as someone who is definitely a oppressed minority, I always feel like why do I want to play society's game if I'm always losing? And hearing someone articulate that was very profound to me. And then the idea of free will, and she said, I have the freedom to make a choice, but what are my choices? So the choices that you're allotted in life based on all the things that make up like your ethnicity, your gender, the age period, the time period, the environment you're in, all those types of things. We also talked about how in industrial societies there's an increased rate in suicide. Thought that was really interesting. For every homeless person in the world, there are 9 empty houses. Let me repeat that. For each homeless person in the world, there are 9 empty houses waiting for them. But obviously we don't have them. It's not that we don't have enough room for people, it's that people have to have a profit for housing. Not having the right words for education, or having access to higher education or understanding education for whatever your path of life is a matter of life and death. And that's something I came up with. I feel so strongly that when you don't have the right words to articulate your thoughts and you don't have the knowledge to have your brain understand what's going on within yourself and the world around you, it is a matter of life and death. And I just kind of wanted to share that. These are some revelations that I've been having and some of the impact that my 2 classes have had on me, and I will keep you guys updated on that. But thank you so much for watching, and let me know your comments down below, your thoughts, what you think, and I will see you guys in my next video. Mwah. Bye, guys. Hey guys, I am here with Juicy. This is the stray cat. Hi, Juice. She's so sweet. I love her tail. I know this is going to sound really weird, but her tail is so hard. I love it. It's like a rock. Hi, Juice. She's just really, really sweet. I don't know where she lives. I think she lives at the apartment complex down the street a little bit. But it was, aw, she's so sweet. She's so sweet. Hi, Juice. Sometimes she gets weird, like if she gets too happy, she'll like, I don't know if it's like a happy bite thing, but if you pet her too much, oh, she loves it. If you pet her too much, she gets a little upset. But yeah, she's my buddy.